So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause.
The vanguard will be there, sir.
Speaking of Candace Owens, do you want to get into this?
Yeah. Let's intro that. Everybody knows I am the Candace Owens hater and skeptic on the podcast. So Gavin, why don't you intro this and I'll wait to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of Candace Owens either, but she definitely has been stirring the pot quite a bit in the days following or the weeks following Charlie Kirk's assassination, asking a lot of, kind of conspiratorial questions, and to a huge fanfare. This lady has tons of subscribers. She'll go live for like over 100,000 people at one time. It's genuinely crazy to see the hold that she's sort of got on right-wing media. And unlike Nick Fuentes, she's not been like totally canceled everywhere. So her reach is much more broad and mainstream. She also has, a lot of normies watch her, even if they're not like super ideological. Yep. She covers true crime stuff. And she's obviously been talking about how Charlie Kirk was in fact in the middle of a bit of a, transitional moment in his professional career and in his personal life, where he was kind of like moving away from being just 100% pro-Israel. Candace Owens started to speculate that maybe in the week or two, or maybe even month or two, who knows how long, right before he got killed, he was actually in the middle of a serious transition away from supporting Israel. And now we've talked about reasons why that might be. Obviously, Nick Fuentes and his kind of cohort of fans and Nazis, they've really been gaining influence in the right-wing space. It's definitely possible that Charlie Kirk realized that, specifically with the youth, and he wanted to compete. He didn't want to be, antiquated in his view on Israel when so much of the youth was turning against Israel. So there's that. We've also talked a lot about how it could have just been a personal thing, because who likes being told what to say? Obviously, Charlie Kirk ran this organization Turning Points, which was very much so reliant on donations from right-wing billionaires. And if you know one thing about right-wing billionaires, most of them happen to also be Zionists and they support Israel. When all of a sudden the donors started to intervene and try to like tell him what he could and couldn't say, or tell him who he could and couldn't invite to a Turning Points USA event, that was apparently starting to piss him off. He was like, okay, well, what the fuck? Like, just on a human psychological level, it's kind of annoying for someone to say, you can't do that, you can't say this, you can't invite that person on your show. That would certainly annoy the fuck out of me. It's part of the reason why we don't take any fucking money from anyone here other than you guys, because we would never tolerate any sort of editorial guidelines or you're not allowed to talk about this, you're not allowed to step on that, whatever. We don't do that. But all of this, hearsay from Candace Owens was just hearsay. It was all just kind of like theories and things that she's been saying without any actual evidence until last night, Zach, because as people have continued to point out that there's no actual evidence for this, and they've challenged Candace Owens to present some actual receipts, I guess she decided that she was far enough backed into a corner that she had no choice but to do that. I'll put up on screen this video, Zach, and we can take a look at the messages from a purported, alleged group chat that she claims to have had access to. And again, this is Candace Owens. This is someone who is also simultaneously out here talking about how Harvey Weinstein is innocent and how Brigitte Macron is a man. So obviously we have to take everything with a massive grain of salt, which is why a lot of people, as Zach referenced himself, specifically, totally discredited most of the conspiratorial notions that Candace Owens was espousing, for good reason. But I'm interested in your opinion after you see these messages.
I'll give it a fair shot.
Yeah, let's take a look, because I do think this is pretty crazy shit.
So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel
Why does
good
she
short
read it in
term,
an
but it's not good
ASMR
long
voice?
term. In my opinion, like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread. I'm not going to reveal the names of the other 7. Actually, you know what? I disagree with myself 4 seconds ago. Let's just throw in Josh Hammer for funsies. He's on this chat. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't actually think that like Israel orchestrated the murder of Charlie Kirk because he was about to, leave the pro-Israel cause. But I will say that, from the perspective of Israel and from the perspective of the conspiracy theorists, you couldn't ask for more fucking fuel to be thrown on the fire than for these messages to be leaked, where Charlie Kirk literally says, I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, literally like a week before he was assassinated. So I mean, again, it's not something that I specifically believe, but it is crazy timing. It is genuinely crazy timing. And people should be honest about it. People should not, people should be honest about this, the fact that this happened. If I do agree with Candace on one thing, it is that a lot of people around Charlie Kirk are very much so trying to make sure that this is not known. And I think it should be known. I mean, this was his, whatever you want to say about Charlie Kirk, he did apparently spend his last 2 weeks kind of dealing with pressure from Israel and pushing back in some way.
Yeah, that is one interpretation of this text message exchange, right? And that is the one that everyone is going with, right? And I think it's interesting that the people who were extremely skeptical about text messages are now just fucking, oh my God, she has the text messages. But let's
she named a guy who's in this message thread. So if any of the people involved come out and deny it, that'll be one thing. No one has.
Fair enough. All this proves to me is that Charlie Kirk was doing what Charlie did best. This dude was talking out of both sides of his mouth, bro. Oh, it's like a dude that it's like, this gives me all the hallmarks of a guy that's telling you he's about to break up with his girlfriend, but he's never breaking up with his girlfriend. You've heard it all before. She's a bitch, bro. I fucking hate her, man. Oh my God, I fucking hate that bitch. But he's never leaving her, bro.
I mean, they left him though. This donor pulled $2 million a year. That's what the text message is about.
Okay, but there's the implication that there's more. Right? There's more money. I think he's placating this group over here to try and keep up the cred that you accurately pointed out. He was losing ground with people like Candace Owens and people like Nick Fuentes. But the reality was he was never going to go the full way. Right? He was going to keep his hand on one side. He was going to keep feeding a bunch of bullshit to the Zionist lobby. Right? I almost used his language, which would be problematic, but I didn't. Right? The Zionist lobby that was paying him a bunch of money from all different sorts of revenue streams, right? Those people might be pulling out, but $2 million, we don't know $2 million out of how much money, right? Another person pulled $2 million a year, but how much money was he getting all together, right? From sources that we would consider Zionist funding, right? I would imagine that this guy's bullshitting like he did best, right? He's bullshitting these people, telling them what they want to hear. Oh my God, like I'm totally down to just like completely just like tell Netanyahu and the Zionist lobby to like shove it, bro. But then when he's talking to the people who have the money, who are the Zionist lobbyists, he's like, well, dude, trust me, I'm just really battling over here. Look at these evil anti-Semites like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes. I guarantee you this guy was trying to talk out of both sides of his mouth.
Now, I have to disagree with you a little bit. My instinct is also to be just critical of all these people every single time. But he is in a group chat with the donors that you're saying he's brown nosing, and these are those people. That's why they're dissuading him from inviting Candace Owens. This one says, please don't invite Candace Owens. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term.
That's not a donor.
I'm pretty sure this is
no. Why would he say just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year to the donor?
Okay, well, it's the higher ups of Turning Point. It's the sort of people that you're saying that he's like brown nosing, essentially.
No, these I think are his friends. These are the people that I think are just like the common man, the people that he wants to schmoo. That's why Candace Owens.
The common man?
The people
these are
in his life.
These are the people, the high up people at Turning Points USA, some of which are in that donor community. That's what Candace Owens was talking about in this live stream.
In this right here, these are not. There's no way that these are the Jewish donors.
Not the actual Jewish donor, but they're not just his fans.
No, not his fans. I'm talking about the guys that he works with every single day. That's this group chat, right?
I mean, I don't know all the people in it. She mentioned one of the names of the people in it, but I mean, he's clearly he's not just like, this was private communications between higher up people at Turning Points USA, where he's talking about how he's losing this money because he won't cancel Tucker from this event, and then he's thinking of inviting Candace as well.
Right.
Like, so I mean, I just don't know how you're saying it's like fake or whatever.
I'm not saying it's fake at all. I'm saying that he's bullshitting. I'm saying that he's telling people in this chat right here one thing, and then would happily turn around and tell somebody else in a different chat another thing. That's the vibe I'm getting. I think from what I understand, the higher ups, like Charlie was a higher up, right? Like, we're the higher ups of the Vanguard. Like, the higher ups at Turning Point USA are the people who run the ship and keep the show going. But those are the people that he's in communication with on the daily, right? So I guarantee you, when he actually is going and dealing with whoever he was with that, $2 million a year that he just lost from a Jewish donor, do I really imagine him being like, fuck you, man, I'm going to double down on this? No, I could just as
he literally was, though. He was going to, and he was inviting Tucker to this event and thinking of inviting Candace to it as well, directly as a way to put a middle finger up to this donor.
He was saying he might do that.
No, he literally was doing that. Like, this has been confirmed by Tucker Carlson as well. Like, that is literally why he was losing these millions of dollars in donation. I don't see why we're like denying this.
I'm saying that he might have lost this $2 million a year.
It says another huge donor,
right?
So
okay.
Implying that he is bleeding money from these Zionist donors. Like, again, I know I'm not trying to say that he was a stalwart defender of humanity. As I said before I introduced all of this, it very well could be just on a human psychological level that people don't like being told what to say and who to platform. That would piss off any of us, myself included. But I don't think we can just deny and say that like he was not putting a middle finger up to these Zionist donor, when clearly he was. He was inviting Tucker Carlson. He was having conversations with Dave Smith and Sagar and Jetty in the weeks before his death about how Israel was controlling our fucking country, bankrupting American taxpayer money, having these conversations that, yeah, they did not want him to be having. That's just explicitly the truth.
My point is that if he is getting, let's say he was getting $100 million from Zionist donors, right? And he lost $10 million of it, right? Do you really think Charlie Kirk was going to take a bold fucking stand and say like, fuck you guys, keep all of the rest of your money? Or was he going to try and sweet talk them and schmooze them?
I think he was looking at Candace Owens and seeing how massively successful she was and the fact that she didn't need their money.
Candace Owens runs a very different operation than Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA has delusions that they're an actual political organization. They put on events. Candace Owens does a show from her bedroom. He does not want to be Candace Owens.
I'm just saying there is proof out there that you don't need these Zionist billionaires to be successful and to be popular. And yeah, I do think he was probably taking a look around at the likes of Candace Owens and envying their freedom as a grown-ass man at this point. I mean, this dude was like in his mid-30s. He probably was at the point where he was like, yeah, all right, like I do want to like have some of my own opinions on some of this stuff. And I doubted that at first, but there is evidence now to suggest that it's true. And I am going to like look at that evidence and acknowledge it and not just pretend that like everything is a psyop, because it is clear that there was friction between Charlie Kirk and the Zionist pro-Israel donors of Turning Point USA that clearly wanted it to go in a different direction than he did. Now, it doesn't mean they killed him, but I think we can acknowledge that. I don't think we have to like minimize it and underplay it when it is very clearly here. And regardless of the conspiratorial element, I mean, this is shocking and newsworthy because it shows just how direct the Zionist influence is over a group like Turning Points USA. These donors just explicitly making demands of people like Charlie Kirk, who's supposed to be independent in this role.
Okay, no, I completely disagree with you because I think that what he's doing right here is he's feeding these people like he's
not feeding people and think this is actually what is happening.
No, that's not true. We have citations. We have one
public
screenshot from Candace Owens. We have Tucker Carlson. I lie to my audience. That's in a court document saying another thing. And then we have Candace Owens who explicitly wants to turn this into a conspiracy theory.
In the same way that Tucker also like used to defend Israel and now he doesn't. Like that's all I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk should win the Nobel Peace Prize or something. Like I'm not trying to give him like all this credit. I'm not saying he like is a hero or was martyred by Israel. I'm just saying that yeah, it is clear based on the evidence we have that yes, he was 100% in friction with these giant mega influential donors, which not only control Turning Points USA or thought they did, but also the president of the United States. Look at Miriam Adelson, look at all this stuff. So yeah, I do think pushing back on that would have created tension.
I hear you, but my read on this is at best he's venting to these people and he would have ultimately folded on it. I just don't think he would burn his bridge with the Zionist lobby after all the funding that they've given him, after the fucking countless hours. I think that he was trying to ride out this wave, and I think Candace Owens is being really selective and trying to paint her narrative all over it. I think that he would 100% have continued to cheerlead Zionism had he lived.
I'm not saying he would have completely turned, but I'm saying that what this spat was over was him associating with and inviting people like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith to come make the anti-Israel case at Turning Points USA events. Clearly, the fact that they didn't want that to happen pissed him off enough to the point that he said, I'm thinking of inviting Candace too, which would have been 10 times worse than Tucker. Tucker was invited to Charlie Kirk's funeral. He spoke at Charlie Kirk's funeral. Candace Owens,
and everybody called him an anti-Semite afterward.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they barely even invited him. But the fact that they were pissed over him getting invited to a TPUSA event, and the fact that Charlie Kirk responded to that by saying, shit, I might invite Candace now. Fuck you. Like, I just don't see how that's not like a genuinely interesting, newsworthy piece of tension that exists within the inner machinations of Turning Points USA that proves how much billionaire donors have sway over not even just the direct ideological direction of Charlie himself, but even just the people he was associating with. Like, that friction does exist. It clearly does. We've heard it from many people. We don't have to believe it, but there is the report too about the explosive, altercation at the Hamptons, right, with Bill Ackman. So, like, I don't know. To me, it's pretty clear that there was actual friction and genuine tension that was bubbling beneath the surface, potentially about to explode into something that genuinely may have reshaped Charlie Kirk's place in the right-wing media landscape. Maybe not Turning Points itself, but yeah, I do think that Charlie Kirk was in the middle of having a little bit of a change of an opinion on this, which again, you don't have to believe anything she says, but Candace Owens swears up and down that, she has more evidence that she doesn't want to share, that it's just like personal conversations with the guy that suggests that. So again, I'm not trying to give credit to these people, but I just think it's worth pointing out.
Sure.
And it does in some way vindicate some of the conspiratorial stuff that everyone has been freaking out, denying that there's any there whatsoever. It's like, okay, then why can't we just talk about this? Why can't we just be honest about this? Why is everyone trying so desperately to deny it?
I think that, again, to me, this very selective screenshot that Candace Owens has access to really says more about the fact that he was frustrated, that he was being told what to do. I don't think it shows anything.
What else is anyone else saying that he was frustrated?
That he was going to roll over and abandon all this Zionist
He
money.
says that myself. He says, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. No one else is saying that. That's his words.
I think that's
not speculation to quote someone.
It's not speculation, but I'm saying his entire life he lived differently than this one very selective screenshot.
Right, but so did Tucker, and he's changed his tune on a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean we have to take him in good faith and say he's a principled person. But yeah, we can acknowledge that Tucker Carlson has changed his public opinion about Israel. Same with like the war in Iraq. Like, this does happen.
Yeah, but I just think it's I just think it's insane cope to go back and try and interpret what Charlie Kirk might have done because of this or that. I think that this could just as easily been him bullshitting, and he could have gotten a tongue lashing from somebody else and decided to fall in line. Like, that is also a possibility that could have happened.
I think the main people that are doing that are like speaking for him and assuming what he are done is like Netanyahu. That's why
everybody at Turning Points USA.
Right. But that's why people, and again, not to give credit to Candace, but that is why people like Candace are so pissed off about this, and why they're like, trying to get this reality of the situation out there, because after Charlie Kirk died, Netanyahu came out here and acted like this is my most loyal soldier and he loved Israel. And the reality is that 2 weeks before he died, he said, I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, something that has been completely omitted from his eulogy and something that no one on the pro-Israel right wants to reckon with. But we should, just because it is a matter of historical fact, as we see here. Like, that is the truth of who this man was in his final weeks. We should be honest about it from the perspective of journalists who are investigating the tension between funding and the people on the, who receive the funding. Like, I don't see how that's like a problem.
I just don't think that one text leaving me no choice.
It's more than one text.
Okay, fine. Where's the other one?
Oh, I said we have reporting and we have a bunch of other anecdotal examples that prove that he was in the middle of changing his mind.
I'm just like, why didn't he do it then? Why didn't he
was in the middle
of
it? We see this all the time from commentators. They don't immediately change their tune. They take a year to do it. They slowly, it's like the frog in the fucking boiling pot of water. First, I'll just have Tucker and Candace and Dave Smith on, and the next thing you know, I'm one of them. I'm not saying that would have happened, but if he wanted to pull it off, I don't think it's impossible. And in fact, I think it would have been a savvy career move for him. Why would he not want to do that? Why would you want to be out of touch with the youth that you supposedly speak to and represent?
Because I think that at the end of the day, he was more concerned about his wealth and status. I think he was more concerned about power. I think he was more concerned about expanding Turning Point USA. And I don't think he was going to be actually willing to shove his chips in the middle and cut off the fucking money machine that was the Zionist lobby. I don't ever think that he was going to do it. And I think he was bullshitting to look cool. That's my actual read on the situation. That's why it's only lunatics like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson that are coming out here to talk about it.
I mean, again, Do I think that Charlie Kirk in his heart of heart was a humanitarian who truly cared about anything other than money and power? No, I'm not saying that. I'm genuinely not saying that. Don't get it twisted. But I do think that saying adios to $2 million a year in addition to other donor money, I do think that's more than just bullshitting. Like, I do think when you actually say, fuck you, I'm going to invite Tucker Carlson to my event to shit on Israel, and I'll do it whether or not it costs me $2 million in donor money. I do think that's more than just bullshitting. Like, that is something that is newsworthy and significant, and that is a direct result of a decision he made. And that it clearly was impacting the internal dynamics at this very influential, company, Turning Point. So yeah, I think that's like more than just bullshitting.
I could accept a lot more. Like, I can accept a lot of your argument. What I think is deeply suspect and why I just instinctively reject anything that is not ironclad is that this is coming from the same woman who not only, as you mentioned, lied about Brigitte Macron being a man, who said Harvey Weinstein is innocent, right? But she's also gone on and said that she thinks this guy was assassinated by Israel in tunnels underneath the school, right? We've seen all kinds of conspiracy theories out the wazoo come out of this lady's mouth that have been completely debunked.
Right, but this could have been coming from anyone. Like, ignore Candace. Like, this is a real screenshot. She named the people who were involved in it. So unless we find out that it's not, like, just, I mean, again, who cares that it's coming from Candace Owens? Like, it is a real message, though.
But it's a selective screenshot that was chosen by Candace Owens. I'm not saying it's fake. I'm saying that it definitely doesn't tell the whole story, and that it's coming from a known conspiracy theorist who has a specific explicit narrative, and she's using all of this to justify it. That's why I'm instinctively and reflexively, just not accepting it and being like, okay, I wonder, this could have been taken out of context. How could we also understand it? What are the other explanations that could be out there? Because all I'm hearing is the one that Candace Owens decided to put out there, which I know is going to be good for her argument.
Right. And she would probably say the reason she's doing that is to push back against all the countless people, including Benjamin Netanyahu himself, who in the days after Charlie Kirk's murder went out there to do the exact opposite on television, which was to claim that he was a completely 100% loyal soldier of Israel and Zionism. So I again, if she really was his friend, I do think it's fair to say, hey, I want people to be aware of who this person actually was, or at least who he was, in the middle of transitioning into or whatever in the final weeks of his life. Like, I do understand that. Like, just again, for the sake of honesty and transparency about who this person was and what their dying thoughts were. Like, yeah, I do get that. Again, as someone who in no way respects Charlie Kirk, in no way respects Candace Owens. I don't get, and I guess my biggest takeaway is that I wish that it was real news outlets and actual journalists that were covering this instead of Candace Owens, so we didn't have to rely on the freaking gray zone and shit like that. Because I do think it's a serious story. I do think it's a real story. Again, even if it doesn't mean that Israel killed him, which I don't think it does, I do still think it's a very insane and newsworthy thing that should be discussed and reckoned with. And yeah, it says a lot about the way that groups like TPUSA operate.
Yeah, I know. I think that there's a lot of reasonable things that you're saying. I just think that, to me, what I come down on is the fact that since he died and he didn't do any of this, like, I'm like, I don't care what you felt in your heart when you fucking died, bro. Like, you lived and died a fucking Zionist genocide defender. You know what I mean? And so that's where I come down on it. And I also would be very curious to find out, like, how much of an impact $2 million has on Turning Point USA. Because if they're getting $500 million a year in funding from various sources, $2 million might seem like a drop in the bucket that you could stick your middle finger up over. I would have been very interested to see how he would have responded if he would have lost 25 million.
Yeah. Well, I would say that there's probably a lot of groupthink when it comes to the donor community. And I would imagine if one guy pulls their 2 million, then like that's a signal that's, meant to start a larger boycott from the other donor community members, who are no doubt probably have their own group chats, where they're talking about how to best weaponize their money to affect their ends, one of which is, Zionism. Also, again, this is, speculation territory, but I have heard people like Tucker Carlson, I think it was Tucker, but people that were like, friends with Charlie Kirk and stuff like that, talking, like saying or speculating that Charlie Kirk did actually have ambitions beyond just Turning Points USA. Like some people said that he was kind of getting bored with it. Maybe he wanted to move on from it. Some people even said he wanted to like actually get involved in politics and run for office himself. And that would make even more sense, right? Because he sees where the fucking winds are blowing. He sees which commentators are getting genuinely, authentically popular. You know what I'm saying? Like he knows where the actual base of the party, especially the youth, increasingly is on the subject matter. I do think it would have been a downright savvy thing for him to start the process of severing some of those ties with some of those donor communities and start to be a little bit more independent if he genuinely wanted to amass influence and a fan base beyond just this propped up, AstroTurf bullshit that was Turning Points USA. But again, that's all just speculation. I don't know if he actually had any plans beyond TP.
No, if he did have that plan, I think it is interesting, right? It's a matter of historical record, as you pointed out. I'm just skeptical that a person like Candace Owens would come out of the woodwork and really, really be married to this narrative just so that she could use it to an anti-Semitic end of blaming Netanyahu. I think that there's just as reasonable of a justification for Netanyahu coming out and making a bunch of Charlie content, because he was kind of the last big defender of Zionism, right? As that entire Titanic was sinking in popularity, Charlie was one of the last guys out here that you could find saying, yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu is a superb leader. I think he's incredible. I love the guy, right? This was within the aftermath of October 7th and now, so within 2 years, right? So 24 months, however many before he died I think a month ago today, so 23 months within that period.
I died on the 10th, the day before 9/11.
Okay, so yeah, basically like a month ago.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah. And either way, within that 2-year period, he'd praised Netanyahu. And I also think a big part of his funding comes not just from Jewish Zionist groups, but from Christian evangelical Zionist groups, Gavin. And I do think
that's why I was turning into a Catholic, bro. That's where the other part of this comes into.
That's why they have to have another justification. And that is where that part comes into it, because it becomes a huge question, right? Because Turning Points USA, I guarantee you, has fuckloads, millions and millions of dollars coming in from Christian evangelical groups. Those people are all insane Zionists. They all really fucking care about Israel. I mean, Mike Pompeo is from the state of Kansas, where Gavin and I grew up. There are people who are like insane fucking Christian Zionists that come from that place. It is a real thing, and a lot of them are in power, and a lot of them come from the Bible Belt, and a lot of them finance Charlie Kirk. So I would be a lot more interested if he'd stuck his middle finger up at the Christian evangelical groups that probably give him 10 times as much money. That's why I really worry it might just be posturing, right? Like that he was just fucking talking out of both sides of his mouth. I'm going to vent to my TPUSA team, and I'm going to have Tucker and Candace, and or maybe not Candace, just Tucker, and I'll stick it to the man, but then I'll go and reassure all of the Christian Zionists, like, hey, I still love Israel. I just have to draw a line in the sand because I'm losing out to Candace and Nick Fuentes, and negotiate something. I think that there's a good chance that was the case too.
Maybe. I think we have more evidence that he was genuinely kind of starting to break with some of these people. Like I remember Netanyahu apparently invited him to Israel and he turned it down, like right before his, like in the 6 months before he died. Like it does seem like he was, we can acknowledge that he was having a bit of a change of mind, whether it was just a business decision
with Jewish donors, sure, but not the Christian evangelicals. We haven't seen anything about that.
Right. We haven't seen a lot. I mean, we're going off a very small shred of evidence now. We have one screenshot of a text message and a bunch of anecdotes. So yeah, for sure, we don't have like the full picture. I'd love to get more details. And yeah, I mean, again, I'm not saying he's a great person who was died a truth teller. Like I'm not trying to add to the stupid fucking martyrdom of Charlie Kirk thing. But I do think I
hear you out.
I just think it's kind of sketch that people surrounding him aren't being more honest about this. I mean, even his wife, who immediately assumed the role of CEO and is, not like,
I think that's the weirdest thing. She didn't seem sad at all, bro.
No, dude, it's fucking weird. Like I saw an interesting meme. Like I didn't know this, but I guess Asmongold's mother recently passed away.
Oh, his dad died.
Or his dad passed away.
Yeah.
And he actually took like at least a month, maybe 2 months off of streaming. Like
a lot of people think that's because of the bot inspection on Twitch, but
well, maybe it is. That's a funny conspiracy. The meme I saw was like, Asmongold really respects it. He's actually grieving. This is what it looks like to grieve. And then it was like, Erica Kirk, like 24 hours after Charlie, and it's like her at like a, pageant, like da 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 da. Like,
I mean, I do think about that. Like, imagine what would happen for a second. I'm not even married, right? But if Salisa got assassinated, God forbid, during a fucking reporting assignment, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if she got fucking killed, there's no way I would do the show for a long time.
It would be, yeah, genuinely.
It would like fucking ruin my life, basically. And to just have this thought process of like, I'm gonna go back out there the next day. No, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, fuck, dude. If somebody close to you, like, even if one of my friends got killed,
Yeah.
like, I'm not coming out here the next day.
Fuck
Are you
no.
fucking kidding me?
Fuck no. Yeah. So it is. There's some sketchy things about that. And yeah, I don't know. It's just weird that like so many people want to omit this or ignore it or not talk about it, so much so that like fucking
That is the
Candace
weirdest
Owens,
thing.
It is. Yeah, it's weird. So, and it's also just giving Candace Owens this lane to keep going down even more and more into the conspiratorial rabbit holes because of the fact that everyone keeps denying it. And then she's like, well, I have a little bit of proof here that kind of contradicts all these denials. Like, it just makes everyone look like even more of a liar. It makes the official, sources that we're supposed to trust look even less fucking official.
That's why I
and
appreciate
trustworthy.
the argument that you brought forward, right?
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The Vanguard will be there.